Hello and welcome to Talks, a space for listening slowly, carefully, and of course with care. Today we travel to Lilongwe, Malawi. I'm honored to be joined by Gift Trapence, a human rights defender, LGBTQ plus activist, and the founder and executive director of the Center for the Development of People in Malawi. Gift's work lives at the intersection of courage and sensitivity, defending communities who are criminalized and targeted, while holding firmly onto humanity, connection, and hope. And this is precisely what we're interested in here at themepark.eco. Gift, thank you for being here. You and I met years ago when I was doing my master's dissertation in Malawi. And I'm really, really glad that we're having this conversation today. Tell me, one of the last moments that you felt joy. What was one of your last joyful moments?
I think for me, one of my greatest joy moment was in 2010 when a couple that was arrested, convicted for 14 years, the maximum sentence given by court because of who the persons were. In 2010 were pardoned. I think that was my greatest moment in terms of the work that I've been doing in the promotion and protection of human rights issues affecting the LGBTQ plus individuals. So when the two who were accused of having public engagement were convicted by the court, there was a huge, debate around the case itself. But I think what was paramount for me was that the president pardoned the two individuals, and I was happy that these two individuals were pardoned. They had their, freedom. I think for me, that was a joy moment in terms of my work, but also in terms of protecting and saving lives of the communities that we save.
For those meeting you for the very first time, Gift, who is Gift Trapence and what first drew you into human rights work?
Yeah, I had the passion of human rights work when I was at school. In fact, when I was graduating from the University of Malawi, I had already made my mind in terms of going into the human rights space. Yeah, so that is why you see me working in the civil society space for the past 20 years or so.
Was there a moment when you realized that choosing this path would come with real personal costs, that your life would change quite dramatically, that you wouldn't be able to have an ordinary life?
Yeah, I think what I've noted over time is that you have people who will, respond to the human rights issues affecting individuals in different way. I think people have their own interests, but also there are other individuals who would want to approach human rights issues, specifically LGBTQ plus issues with emotions. So as a human rights defender, you face a lot of ridicule, a lot of discrimination, a lot of personal attitudes. Yeah, so I think I'm used. Like for me, I'm used to such kind of reactions. But when I was just starting, I was also I was also worried in terms of people taking issues personal, even people resorting into physical violence. I think when you are in this space, I think it's something that you need also to expect in terms of the risks that a human rights defender can have when they are doing their work. But I think the bigger picture, I have to say that anyone who is a true human rights defender is to stand for justice, is to stand for the principles of human rights. I think that's That's what is more important for me. So that principle has carried me on to do my work regardless of all the challenges that we face as we're doing our work.
When I was in Malawi with you many years ago, remember you had received a video of, I believe it was a trans woman in Malawi being severely beaten and attacked in the street. What is it like for you? What kind of toll, emotional, psychological, does it take on you to be the go-to person for so many people of our community in the country?
Yeah, I think when you are doing this work, you are the gateway, all right, to all these challenges because people would call you at any given time. People would want to be helped. Yeah, so when you are doing the work, I think emotionally, some stories will also affect you personally. You can have mental issues because you hear so many stories from so many individuals who would want to be supported uh, with protection. Sometimes when the expectation is not met or when the case is taking long, to be resolved. Personally, you're also affected because you feel that you are not putting much effort to help the individuals. I think what we have noted over time is that when we don't have enough resources, to respond to violence, it becomes also a challenge to, help individuals. So most of the cases that we receive from the transgender communities, I think they receive a lot of physical violence, a lot of cyber security. So the day-to-day work that we do is about saving the communities, but sometimes you are challenged, as I say, because you don't have the resources. But what keeps us going is that when you help someone who would want to see justice, who is not supported by the justice system, I think for me, you feel happy when this very same person one day coming to you saying, "Thank you for that support. I moved on with my life. I'm able to, do my work and live my life normal like anyone else." I think that is what keeps on some of us going when you hear those positive stories from the victims of torture, from the victims of violence. When we support them, when they come back to appreciate your work, that keeps us going.
Malawi still criminalizes same-sex relationships, right?
Yes, we still have the criminal laws in the penal code. We have some specific sections that criminalize same-sex sexual conduct. And I think last year, in 2024, we had a case where a transgender person was arrested and convicted for 7 years. And this individual challenged the constitutionality of those sections. But I think the court ruled against repeating those sections, what we term them as sodomy laws. Even from consenting adults is criminal. Yes.
Are these laws that come from the colonial times when Malawi was a British colony?
Yeah. So Malawi has existed from the pre-colonial time. Before the British, we did not have these laws. When the British came, they came with these sodomy laws. So, as a country, when we obtained our independence in 1964, we also adopted these laws. So these laws are not Malawian. These laws were just imposed on us because we imported them from the colonial masters. So these are these are colonial laws. And we have had so many laws that have been repealed. But I think what we have noted is that the country is resisting to change some of these laws that are not in line with the democratic principles, that are not in line with the human rights principles.
Now, let me understand something. I have met several times the previous Minister of Health of Malawi at events like the UN General Assembly. She seemed to be such a welcoming and open-minded individual. Do you think that when it comes to the individuals, even those in positions of power, they would still want these laws to be active, or would they want to repeal these laws and move forward when it comes to the rights of the LGBTQ plus community? Personally, politically, obviously, politicians have to act out in a certain way, but personally, what's the feeling?
To be honest, when you meet some individuals, politicians, in private spaces, personal level, at individual level, people will be sincere, saying, we understand that these laws are impinging or are violating the rights of LGBTIQ plus persons. As individuals, would want to repeal these laws. But I think what I have noted over time is that politicians always feel, or the politicians fear the backlash because they are politicians. They think that they will end up losing the elections if they repeal these sodomy laws. But also some fear their churches.
Yeah. You've used the word fear a few times, and I'm interested in understanding, as a, take any gay person in Malawi, apart from the criminalization of same-sex conduct, how is the individual impacted, as when it comes to how they move throughout society, when it comes to work or looking for work, when it comes to the people they can trust or not trust, when it comes to where they travel or not travel? So the law aside, in the day-to-day life of an individual, how is their life shaped?
The law is supposed to be there to protect all individuals, all citizens equally, regardless of sexual orientation. What we have seen over time is that people or citizens of different backgrounds would want to use the law. Since same-sex relationships are criminalized, they would want to use the law as a justification for discrimination. You find that an individual is disempowered already because of those sodomy laws. People are discriminated in the workplace. People are discriminated in the education sector. We have had cases where people are expelled from school because of their sexual orientation. People are discriminated in terms of participation in developmental processes. People are excluded because of the sexual orientation. People are discriminated in terms of accessing different social services. I think you talked earlier about health-related services. The right to health is for everyone to access those services, but we find that because of the stigma, because of the discrimination that is there, because of that discrimination taking different shapes from culture to religion, you find that the lives of LGBTIQ plus individuals in Malawi is not lived like anyone else, like a normal citizens. The lives lived as if individuals are second citizens of this country. The real challenge is to have laws that can protect individuals, even from hate. You can see that because of these laws, we have so much hate. Some of us would want to have laws on hate crimes, so that individuals should be protected regardless of color, regardless of sexual orientation, even regardless of belief. So these are the issues, if you ask an ordinary LGBTQ plus individuals living in Malawi will tell you in terms of the fear. The fear that is
Yes.
there is the fear of being physically harmed, violence. So we have a lot of violence, even physical violence, that is, directed towards LGBTQ plus persons in Malawi.
What happens to the person who perpetrates violence against an LGBT person in Malawi? Is the person persecuted, or do they feel that the law is on their side?
I think what we have also noted is that we don't have structures. Our justice system, maybe so to say, is not well oriented or is not sensitive to LGBTIQ plus issues. So even if someone is beaten up as an LGBT person, the first issue that comes to the person is not to report that case. The person cannot go to police because I think normally people fear that instead of focusing on the assault or on the specific case that this person is reporting to the police, those individuals or the police officer will focus on the sexual orientation of the individual, will focus on the appearance of that individual. So most of the time, you find that when people's rights have been violated, they would rather not report those cases because, in general, they would want not to be victimized further because they are afraid of double victimization. So the issue of justice system that I was talking about is a big issue. I think we need different state and non-state actors to be responsible in terms of not having a selective justice system. I think the system should be open enough to allow everyone who has been victimized, regardless of sexual orientation, to be helped in terms of accessing justice. But I think the challenge that we have had over time is that the institutions that are mandated, with that duty sometimes are not sensitive or do not understand the rights of LGBTIQ plus persons.
So, what we're seeing here is that laws do not just punish, which would be harsh enough in the case of people of the LGBTQ plus community, but they also, in a way, teach society who is worth of dignity or isn't.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think what we have seen over time, I think we have polarized the discussions around human rights issues. I think when you talk about LGBTQ plus rights, people always think it's about sex. I think
Yes.
people think that you are talking of different human rights issues.
Yes.
But if you go on the basic, question about human rights, you find that you don't talk about different human rights issues. These are the very same human rights issues. The right to education is for everyone. The right to health
Yes.
is not like a different right. The right to life, the right to equal opportunities, the right to equality. So you find that people would want to talk about sex, politically. They don't want. They
Yes.
just want to shut individuals from discussing human rights issues. I think interestingly, what I have noted is that when those individuals' rights, other individuals who champion the hate, their rights have been victimized, are the first people who would want to go and cry, saying my rights are not respected. I think what we have also seen is that those people who are privileged with positions, they would want to take advantage, to abuse their positions, not to
Yeah.
protect individuals like equality. I think that's also the other challenge that we have seen, that those people who are in positions, they would want to save their interest, but also they would want to work on human rights selectively.
The point of these talks at themepark.eco is precisely to try and see how these struggles connect. And you just touched on it, and I would like to ask you to please elaborate a little bit further. Where do you see parallels between the LGBTQ plus rights struggle in Malawi and other global fights? Think of climate justice, for example, women's rights, racial justice, but I'm also thinking of what we're seeing going on with the attack on Palestinians, the attack on a whole people. Where do you see points of intersection between the work that you do and the work of these other civil rights activists globally?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of intersectionality in terms of the rights of vulnerable groups. For example, women rights, issues of gender. I'll tell you, like Malawi, women were not allowed to wear trousers. They started wearing trousers
Until when?
after we attained our democracy in 1994. So it's about 30 years ago. It was a taboo to put on the trousers. But if you look at that critically, you find that women were marginalized in terms of the right, to dressing. Yeah. So, but for the women movement to be where they are now, including even now, you find that even very few women are appointed in important positions in Malawi. We still have more work to do for women to be treated as equals. The struggle that women, have had in terms of being treated equally is the same struggle that other groups or other individuals in our society are having. The struggles that persons with albinism, for example, in Malawi,
Huge
are
issue.
facing now is the same struggle that LGBTQ plus individuals are also saving. So, but people don't realize that. So that when we have a society that is mistreating, certain groups in a different way, you find that that will be used as a yardstick. That will be used as as part of the culture to ill-treat other groups. The same that we have talked about in Palestine, the same that we have talked about, other groups, indigenous groups. Yeah, so you find that people will use these groups to be mistreated because of their own, political agenda. Those people who are in the forefront, discriminating others, they are protecting their own interests. If you look closely, meaning that they are maybe protecting their position of power. So they would want to sustain their power by oppressing others. I think what we have noted, some of us, is that where you have democracy not working, you find that people who are victimized are the poor, are the most vulnerable individuals. People have sustained themselves politically because of poverty, because maybe they know that if people are poor, so as politicians will be surviving because these people will be not empowered economically. So we'll be able also to sustain our own political positions. I think equally, people don't want to protect the vulnerable groups. And you find that most of the vulnerable groups are disempowered economically. So what I've noted, I think, is the issue of their own self-interest, not serving the interest of the majority. So it's not only the LGBTIQ plus, rights protection or issues, but in general, you find that the survival of politicians or people in high positions is about oppressing others. They would want to oppress others for them to survive.
Gift. Activism takes so much from the body and the heart. Your work all over these years, throughout the years, has been so critical and intense. I have a personal question, one about you as we wrap this conversation. How do you take care of yourself? Under these circumstances, how do you take care of you?
Yeah, I think the first care that I think that one can have is to, build networks, is to, increase the voice, to mobilize the next generation of leaders. I think over time, I think what I've been doing is to mentor the activists, focusing on LGBTIQ plus issues. I think that's what I've been doing in terms of making sure that we're able to pass on the skills to the youth, to the next generation of activists, to the next generation of leaders. I think if you talk to me maybe 10 years or 15 years ago, it was about gift, 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 gift. But now, as we are talking, we have over 13 LGBTIQ plus organizations. We have so many leaders in the space who have been mentored, who have been, trained. That alone gives me a breather in terms of what you are talking about. I think sometimes when you are doing this work, you need also self-care. It's a great challenge for many defenders in the world because we don't have time to cool off. Because the moment you are saying that you're on holiday, it's the moment that you are called, to resolve an issue. There are so many challenges. There are so many shifts that are being made because of the economic interests that has impacted in terms of how we value human rights principles, how we respect the rights of citizens. I think this has tested our democracy. We hope that after this phase that we are facing, we will not create tyrannies, we will not create dictators, because if the status quo continues like this, I think it will be fertile grounds of dictatorship. But while we're in this process, we have this world changes that is going on because of the economic interests, and that will impact our democracies, will impact the enjoyment of rights and protection of vulnerable groups in different ways. And that is why I'm saying that our democracy in the world is tested. Our democracy that is at crossroads. We are more or less in a crisis in terms of defending democracies.
Gift, thank you. Thank you deeply for your openness, your courage, your care. What stays with me out of this conversation is how clearly you remind us that human rights are not abstract ideas, but they live in bodies, relationships, fear, love, and everyday acts of resistance and kindness. Thank you very much again for trusting us. And
Thank you.
we will speak to you soon, I'm sure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.